Welcome to Tomorrow.Africa, the podcast that explores the possibilities and the potential of Web3 in the African continent. We believe that the future of Africa is bright and that emerging technologies such as blockchain can accelerate its development. We interview people who contribute to this breakthrough in Africa and around the world and who hold a positive vision for the future. My name is Yassi Lokman and I'll be your host for this podcast. In today's episode, I'll be interviewing Eric Osuorah. Eric is Nigerian based in Mississauga, Canada. With a background in the technology space, Eric is working on launching AFOMA, an ecosystem comprised of several ambitious projects aiming to empower artisans and artists in Africa and around the world. Sellitic, a decentralized artisanal marketplace, Oruvan, an NFT marketplace for traditional arts, and Afomaland, a Metaverse centered around the African traditional arts. We will be discussing each one of these projects, their native token, the OMA token, and Azoneta, a charity Eric has launched and that was one of the inspirations behind AFOMA. We'll also be discussing the potential of blockchain technology in the African continent, his vision for the future of Africa, and some advice on how you could get started with your own ambitious projects. Eric will be mentioning some dates related to milestones of the AFOMA projects. So in case you're listening to this episode later on, please note that these are dates of the year 2022. Very interesting discussion, so make sure to listen up until the end. I hope you'll enjoy it. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Yasin. Thanks for having me.
Eric, it seems like you have been running a very good race so far. You have a technical background, so you're the founder of an ecosystem comprised of several initiatives aiming to drive social impact and inclusion in the African continent through the leveraging of emerging technologies like blockchain. So we will talk about each one of those projects and see how they fit together. But first, let's take a look at your background. What was your journey so far, and how did you get to where you are right now? And how did you get specifically interested about blockchain technology?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been in the technology space for over 2 decades. I first of all got into the blockchain space because I stumbled upon this article that talked about this technology that allows for decentralization and immutability, right? And that really struck a chord with me because that is something that I felt was very, very important from a privacy security standpoint, especially with everything that's going on across the globe today. And also, when I started seeing its use cases around cryptocurrency and other forms of use cases that blockchain is being leveraged for, I definitely felt it was a space that I wanted to educate myself in. And I started learning, I went to trainings, and I actually went on further to acquire a certification within that space. So I am actually a blockchain certified architect, and I've been in this space probably going to almost 6 years, 5 to 6 years now or so. And most recently, I also started a not-for-profit, a charity organization that's registered here in Canada. We do work across sub-Saharan Africa. So come 2021, I decided to become a bit creative. And I wanted to create an opportunity where through the works that we do through my not-for-profit, I wanted to find ways where I can raise funding to address humanitarian projects across the globe. And one of the things that I decided to do was go into building a social enterprise that will allow me to do that. Whereas we're generating revenue, part of our revenue goes towards funding humanitarian projects across the globe. So I just didn't want to get into building a social enterprise per se, but what I wanted to do at the end was also do a bit of more research to find out how I can create impact, right? Because one of the things we see across Africa and most of these marginalized regions is where we keep seeing money being sent to some of these regions, but it just plays a certain role. I honestly believe if we want to drive impact, we want to contribute towards the informal economy, because we tend to see a lot within Africa today where the formal economy just is not sustainable today, right? So I wanted to find ways where we could contribute towards an informal economy where people can actually contribute and earn a decent living and try to find ways to live above the poverty level, right? So I decided to now tap into the handicraft space. And the reasons why I did that was because when we see, I've seen statistics showing that a significant amount of handmade products or handicraft products leave from developing countries into high income countries. But we tend to see where these people in Africa or other regions are still, struggling to make ends meet. So what could be the challenge or what could be the problem there? And I felt it had to do with one, the lack of digitization. One is access to capital. And just even running a business on its own could be, capital intensive, right? So there might be cost prohibitive factors that are preventing them to scale beyond their local economy, right? So I decided to build an ecosystem, as you pointed out, that will promote artists and artisans primarily across Africa and across the globe, because we do have other communities beyond Africa that are also within that poverty level, right, or experiencing poverty. So we want to definitely spread this ecosystem across the globe, and that's why I went into this space, and that's what led me down this path primarily.
Sounds very good. Eric, before diving deeper into the different projects of this ecosystem, let's maybe take some time to define what blockchain technology is. I'm sure most of our listeners are already quite familiar with the technology and have at least an elementary understanding of blockchain. But for those who do not, how would you explain it simply? And how does it relate to terms that we hear a lot about lately, such as Web3, NFTs, Metaverse, and so on?
Yeah, so the way, in simple terms, right? The blockchain technology. Just imagine it to be a, how would I put it in layman's terms? Just imagine it to be a distributed database, right? So we have this technology that stores different transactional records, right, into several databases, and all of these transactions are all built into what they call blocks, right? So, and as these blocks are all interconnected, that's what forms that chain. That's why the term blockchain comes to be, right? So you have all of these transactions together built into a block, interconnect to form a chain, and where it allows you to, it's built on a network where different nodes or different, imagine computer systems across the globe are all connected peer to peer, right? So blockchain typically allows for these transactions to be decentralized, because we're now doing peer-to-peer connectivity, right? That's one aspect of it. And because these blockchains or these blocks are all interconnected, what happens is that those records become immutable because of the hashing algorithm, that's cryptography that goes into play, right? So all of them are interconnect. And as a result of that, it allows for those records to become immutable. So that means as the records are built into or written into these blocks, you can't actually alter or delete these records, right? So each of these transactions, have a digital signature of the owner attached to it, right? So that's what leads to that. When you hear the terms of private keys and all whatnot, that's what makes these blocks or these digital ledgers, as you commonly hear the term, highly secure, right? So that's what blockchain technology is, and that's what we tend to see. It's something that is people tend to see today, and they don't understand the benefits of it because it's primarily pushed towards cryptocurrency. But based on the features of what blockchain technology is all about, you can definitely see that it has a lot of more use cases beyond what you see when we talk about cryptocurrency. So that's pretty much what it is: a distributed database that has all of these records written into that form blocks that are all interconnected together to form a chain and built on a network of peer-to-peer computers or peer-to-peer nodes. In where at the end of the day, that whole storage is what they refer to as the storage behind all of these transactions is what they now call as a digital ledger.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's also good to point out that there are different blockchain protocols aiming to solve different types of issues, so they could
Correct.
differ from each other.
Yes.
But most blockchains share some attributes like decentralization, security, permissionlessness, and transparency,
Absolutely.
and also, as you've said, immutability.
Correct.
So what makes these attributes so interesting for use cases in developing countries? And how could blockchain-based solutions help solve some of the issues faced in African countries like poverty, hunger, inaccessibility to basic services, and so on?
That's a very good question. So, one of the things we tend to see a lot in Africa is, as we know, there's a lot of poverty in these regions. There's we are not just only in Africa, but we also see things where um, you know counterfeiting and records are all being created and all whatnot. So and we also see this trend or this ability where because of corruption that is prevalent in these countries, um, the core features of blockchain is very well suited for Africa. When you look at the feature of immutability, where the minute a record or something is written to the blockchain, right, or to the blockchain network, right, it cannot be altered, right? That takes away the level of corruption where records can be adjusted or modified or hidden, right? So that's the beauty about what blockchain has to offer. Now, when you now start looking at other use cases where we now start talking about cryptocurrency and decentralization, it also gives power to the people, right? So in that sense, where imagine now you have people who are token holders or holders of a specific token. They now, based on the specific project, they are given the ability to provide governance, right? Giving them rights to vote based on certain objectives that so-called project is looking at getting into. So people now have a voice, right? So it gives people the ability to give them a voice. So you look at immutability, you look at aspects of decentralization that allows them to have governance. And then you also look at the ability of where, with cryptocurrency being a digital ledger, it's now a global currency. It's not just left for a specific demographic or a specific group of individuals. Anybody across the globe can own a digital currency now with the abilities of cryptocurrency, right? So these are the fundamentals of what blockchain has to offer, and a lot more. So when you apply all of this, especially when it comes to rigging in some of our countries in Africa, and you talk about decentralization, giving people the voice. For example, if you look at what happened with the NSAS protest in Nigeria, where people who were donating to these to that cause, the banks were shutting down. the ability for people to donate to help drive that protest. And what happened? People started donating using cryptocurrencies because it's becoming decentralized at that point, right? That these are the capabilities of what cryptocurrency or blockchain can offer, but it has to be used responsibly well as well, right? Because there are the goods and the bads of what blockchain has to offer, and just like every other technology out there, right? So as long as you can leverage blockchain responsibly, it has a lot to offer across Africa.
Yeah, definitely. Technology is in itself neutral, but it depends. The impact that it would have would depend on the way it is implemented.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is the very technology that you're working to leverage with your projects. So before talking about AFOMA, I just would like to talk a little bit about the charity that you have mentioned in the introduction. I think it's called Azoneta,
Sure.
right? Am I?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes,
great.
yes, yes.
So, what was the motivation behind the launch of this initiative? And could you please share the highlights and key achievements of this initiative, and maybe
Sure.
the key learnings that you have gained from this experience?
Absolutely. Well, so Azoneta came to be during COVID. When COVID hit us primarily across the globe, and we started seeing a lot of things that were happening in the big impact of COVID-19 across Africa. Um, I usually donate to charities here and there from time to time, but COVID-19 was what was the pivotal point for me that I said I needed to do something more. And I reached out to my family members back home in Nigeria, and I sat down and I touched base with them to find out how things were going, how they were coping with the virus and the impacts to their businesses. And you could tell it was not easy for them at all. And I decided to send some money to support them and their families. And you could tell the impact that made in their lives. And so at that point, I made a decision that I wanted to build a not-for-profit organization where I can create impact, and that's what led me down Azoneta. Azoneta now is a registered charity here in Canada, and we primarily focus on alleviation of poverty, um, good health and well-being, and quality education as well. Right. So that is primarily what we are focused on. I think we've made a huge milestones. We've helped renovate schools that had very bad infrastructure, and we tend to see this a lot across Africa, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, where education is highly neglected, and the infrastructures are tremendously in a very bad state. So we've successfully renovated schools. We had a school in Southeast Nigeria where the kids were literally sitting on floors in their classrooms. They had no roofing across in two buildings. So come rain or shine, imagine children learning in that space, right? So we we managed to raise money through donors, and we were able to renovate the school, put in proper roofing in the two school buildings. We managed to allocate school desks for these kids, and we've done the same thing, in a similar fashion in a school in Ghana, where again, these schools had no school desks for kids. We've been helping donating clothing, school resources, books across schools in Nigeria. We are working on a project now where we're trying to raise money to fund a project in Ghana where for an orphanage where children, this orphanage that's hosting 50 kids, are primarily sleeping on floors. They just have a thin sheet of cloth that they put on the floor to lay down. no human being should be living like that. It is it is quite sad and discouraging when you see situations like that, and there are other places across the globe as well, right? So those are the milestones that we've successfully achieved, and we will continue to achieve. And we are very, very motivated at Azoneta. We have wonderful volunteers and people who are committed to supporting us, and we are very grateful for that. And we hope to achieve more wonderful things across with our platform, and we're very grateful to our donors for their support. And in fact, we're just wrapping up a project in the western part of Nigeria, in Lagos, where in a slum where kids we had to rebuild take care of this building, where we had to renovate it and make it become a functional school. So I mean, we've been very busy at Azoneta, and by the way, we've only been about a year old, but we've done a significant amount of projects. So hopefully, when your listeners will check us out at www.azoneta.org, azoneta.org, and see some of the work that we've done as well.
That's impressive, Eric. Would you say that Azoneta was maybe a stepping stone towards AFOMA, or maybe an inspiration?
Yes.
How do the two
yes,
projects relate to each other?
Azoneta definitely inspired me towards AFOMA. I pointed out at the early part of our call where I wanted to find ways where I can generate revenue to fund projects that Azoneta is doing, right? So that's what led me down the path of AFOMA. So Azoneta is pretty much a sister organization to AFOMA itself. And my goal is where we at AFOMA will be as we generate revenue within the AFOMA ecosystem, we will take a part of that revenue to fund humanitarian projects, either through Azoneta or other partners that are aligned with our social impact vision, right? So that's how they're connected. So as Azoneta is a sister organization to AFOMA, and we are looking at ways where the two companies or two organizations can, as they are interlinked, as I pointed out, revenue generated from AFOMA will be going towards funding United Nations Sustainable Development Goals through Azoneta and through other partners that we are looking at collaborating with in the AFOMA project.
So that's great. So let's now talk a little bit more about AFOMA. So AFOMA is a protocol aiming to enhance value creation of handicrafts and arts by empowering artists, right? And you're using a decentralized model, or let's say blockchain technology, as a platform to enable this use case. How is it? Is it correct?
Yeah. So AFOMA is obviously a social enterprise, technology-driven company. That's one aspect. We are technology-focused, but we want to leverage technology for good. And in doing so, we have decided to build our own utility-based token, which is also called AFOMA. And by the way, AFOMA means goodwill in my native tongue, which is Igbo, the Igbo language. As you know, I'm from Nigeria. So AFOMA will drive this ecosystem, and this ecosystem will include three pillars, right? Within that ecosystem, one of them will be a multi-vendor marketplace where artisans and artists across Africa, across the globe, can come and list their products on this platform. Where does AFOMA come in here? So AFOMA will allow our artisans and our buyers to be part of that community. And being part of that community means you will also become token holders of the AFOMA token. And I'll touch on how you can become a token holder. But that gives you once you become a token holder within this ecosystem, you are part of our community that which gives you voting rights or act in the form of governance within that ecosystem. So our artisans today will have a voice of how the AFOMA ecosystem will behave, right? When you look at other organizations who I see as our competitors, like the likes of Etsy and the rest, they are not designed that way. They have taken a centralized approach, and that is one of the reasons why you tend to see artisans today on strike, the Etsy artisans today on strike. Because first of all, the platforms are now being built to become more expensive. And these artisans don't have a say in some of these things because the decisions are made above. Now, don't get me wrong, Sellitic would have almost a hybrid system, but the token will drive decentralization because certain decisions will be made by our artisans, right? That's the part. That is the whole decentralized aspect of it, right? That's one aspect of it, and we will be building out an NFT marketplace, but we want to try to be very unique in our space because we have a lot of NFT marketplaces that are out there, a lot. So one of the unique things about our marketplace called Oruvan, or Oruvan is means one and only, and we want to tie in Oruvan back to Sellitic. So what do I mean by that? If an artist, for example, paints a canvas, or puts out a canvas, right? The artist also has the ability to say, I want to mint this canvas in the form of NFTs. And that then gives our buyers the ability to say, hey, I want to buy the NFT of this artwork. And which will allow me to own the physical product. So you're now building a twin in that sense, right? So you own the NFT and then you own the physical product, right? But we also want to use Oruvan to promote culture. We do not want to get into the space of where others are competing. Now, there are other NFT spaces or marketplaces that are looking at their platforms to promote culture. We have to wait and see if that's truly the case, right? But for us, because our vision, our value is around social impact, we want to definitely, and culture preservation, we want to use Oruvan to promote that. So we want to truly focus on culture preservation. Nigeria is rich in culture. Africa is rich in culture. We want to allow youths, individuals to actually use our platform to show that, project that, because that could help break the barriers around racial disparities. People tend to now understand and appreciate people's culture and understand their culture. So we want to use Oruvan to project that. And in doing that, tie that back to Sellitic. Sellitic is our multi-vendor marketplace. And where we are also different as well is the social impact perspective as well. We, as I pointed out, a lot of our revenues will be driven towards a percentage of our revenue will be driven towards funding humanitarian projects. So, and the our NFT marketplace brings our uniqueness gives us that value within Oruvan itself. And then in all of that, we are now seeing the buzzword around the metaverse. We do not want Africa and some of these marginalized regions to be left behind because we are seeing the trend where the large corporations are getting into this space. So what happens now, right? Are they going to allow for accessibility? Are they going to allow for inclusion? And that's where we want to make a difference. We want to definitely allow for accessibility. We want to allow Africa. We want to allow Southeast Asia. We want people who are pretty much marginalized to be part of what our metaverse world will be, which is called Afomaland. So through Afomaland, we will have the ability for children in one part of the globe collaborating with kids in another part of the globe virtually. We will project our Sellitic marketplace in there, in our metaverse. We will project Oruvan in our metaverse. We are partnering with strategic companies that are doing amazing things. Where, for example, we can build out data points, or we can allow people to have a virtual excursion to see ancient civilization of countries across Africa or across the globe, right? All of this we want to project within our Afomaland, because we tend to see heritage skills being offshored. We tend to see culture across Africa and some of these marginalized regions being lost. And we want to find ways to preserve that. And that's what AFOMA will tend to do. And as we are bringing people to partake within this entire ecosystem, we want to incentivize them. So AFOMA is building this ecosystem that is totally engaged in or driven or motivated for social impact. But as we are building this ecosystem and people are contributing towards our ecosystem, our vendors, our buyers, our users, they are all going to be incentivized in our token. So we are also not only creating an impact through bringing in enabling commerce or enabling business, small, medium-sized businesses, but we also want to generate passive income, which we see with other crypto projects as well. But utility is much more different than just DeFi solutions, right? So as you are contributing to that ecosystem, if you are an artisan and you're selling a product on Sellitic, and a buyer buys your product and gives positive feedback for the service you have rendered, we want to incentivize you, because why? We want to encourage you. And that changes the way of thinking for artisans in other poorer regions. Because when you look at an artisan in North America and look at an artisan in Nigeria, there are two different perspectives, two different worlds. The way the artisan in North America, for example, would behave towards a customer is maybe a different experience with someone from Africa. So encouraging people, right, when they do something good and when they contribute to an ecosystem is the way we change behavior, right? So as people are contributing to this ecosystem, whether you're a buyer, whether you're an artist, our artisan, if a buyer buys a product, for example, on our Sellitic marketplace, we will incentivize you in OMA tokens as well. So we are enhancing a creator economy. We are enhancing an ownership economy. And what I mean by an ownership economy is the fact that as you start earning tokens or the OMA tokens across our ecosystem, that then gives you the power to actually vote, gives you voting rights to make based on certain decisions that has to be made within that ecosystem itself, right? So this is a big thing. This is what sets us different from the likes of other handicraft marketplaces, because we now have people that have a voice within that space. But not only that, we are also building our platform to eliminate barriers of entry and operations. So that is where AFOMA gives us all of these opportunities, because even on our Sellitic marketplace, we're going to open it up for people who want to buy a product using crypto, right? So we're going to offer cryptocurrency as an option for payment within our Sellitic marketplace as well. So that's pretty much what how AFOMA brings in this entire platforms within an ecosystem, and how we have set ourselves to be different from the rest and offer a value proposition to our consumers.
And Eric, can you share a few words about the roadmap of AFOMA, the key milestones that you have set to realize these different solutions that you have mentioned, like the Metaverse, Sellitic, and so on? And when can people be able to join the ecosystem as artists or as token holders to contribute to the evolution of the ecosystem?
Yes. So Sellitic right now, we finished phase one of our beta testing. We are looking at starting phase two of our beta testing in probably around June. We will be testing out with some artisans here in Canada. Even most likely, we want to target the indigenous community here in Canada as well. And we are not going to be exclusive. We want to be inclusive, so anybody can be part of that ecosystem. So, but primarily, Sellitic, we are looking at doing a soft launch probably around fourth quarter of this year. Oruvan, we are also looking at Oruvan to be launched probably around the fourth quarter of this year as well. And our Metaverse, Afomaland, we are looking at building out a prototype around the second quarter of next year, right? Now, we just round up our seed sale of our token, and which was very successful. We are now planning on going into our private round, and we're hoping that might happen around ending of May, right? But when we look at how the crypto market and everything else is going, but we are looking at ending of May for our private round where people can actually buy into our vision can buy our crypto, and we'll be making those announcements across our social media channels and on our website. And for now, tentatively, we are looking at the public sale of our token probably around June, July, right? After the public sale, then we will be listing on a decentralized exchange where people can actually now start trading in our tokens, and at the end of the day, also being part of our community within Afoma itself.
And do you see some obstacles already to the implementation of these technologies in the context of Africa? And how are you planning to overcome different obstacles that may appear?
That's a very good question. Absolutely, there are definitely obstacles, big time. For example, Sellitic, one of the key operational requirements for Sellitic is logistics, as you know, right? One of the challenges we have is we tend to see a lot of organizations in Africa that are in that logistics space, but they are not innovative enough. Let me put it that way. And if they are not responsive enough, right? Because for us, we want to definitely look at strategic partnerships that can help facilitate logistics. And when you start dealing with companies that are within that space, where one, they are not accessible, two, they are not innovative enough to actually say, hey, this is what we are looking at, and how can this find what ways can you make this work so that you can compete with the likes of other organizations or logistics companies in Europe or other parts of the globe. They are slow to innovation, and again, it might just be that they want to stay in their comfort zone, right? So that's one aspect of it. But Sellitic is looking at this point, saying we have to start looking at companies, well-established companies that are doing this today. Like, for example, we have a partnership with DHL today, and we are looking at expanding across sub-Saharan Africa. We are already incorporated in Mauritius, so we can handle shipping across Mauritius. We can handle shipping across, or we will be handling shipping across Nigeria. And these are the reasons because we just could not find the right organizations that could work with us, right? And it could just be lack of the motivation to be more innovative, or maybe they are not looking at things from they lack the, how would I put it, the vision of seeing the long term strategy or goal to be achieved in doing in what we're trying to do. So that's one aspect of that challenge, right? There are also challenges of where do people understand the technology? When we talk about where we're going to be incentivizing people in crypto, or maybe artisans who want to leverage crypto as a form of payment, because during our pilot phase, we were working with a wonderful lady who is a teacher from Nigeria who makes crochet toys. One of her biggest concerns when she and I spoke was she could not scale beyond Nigeria. Why? Because payment systems were fragmented, right? So we have to find ways to allow payment systems to be accessible globally, and that's why we introduced cryptocurrency. However, we will also allow for transactions to happen in fiat. We looked around different organizations that can help us integrate payment systems within Sellitic. But some of the ones you see today, their model doesn't help us in the sense of, because we can afford to handle those transactions, but someone has to pay that cost. And at the end of the day, goes back to the artisan, and we don't want that. We want the artisans to benefit at least 90% of their revenue, as much as possible of their income. That's what we want to attain. So we that was one of the challenges we had to face, but we were motivated, and we found the right partnership with a payment gateway here in Canada that are innovative. They want to grow with us, and that's very important to us as well, right? So that's another aspect of the challenge that we were having. But then the understanding of the technology is another aspect. So what we ended up doing is we launched through the AFOMA Foundation uh, program. We launched a partner grant program where we look at organizations that can partner with us that are aligned with our vision. So we partner with a company, organization called Tomorrow.Africa that is primarily committed to blockchain and cryptocurrency education, right? So we were looking at, for artisans who don't understand the technology, we can ask them, hey, you go and learn with Tomorrow.Africa. And in doing so, we will also be incentivizing you to learn, because our vision is where Tomorrow.Africa delivers these educations. They incentivize the artisans or their community when they come and learn this technology, because we want people to understand the technology that's being adopted here. So we are offering grants to organizations that partner with us that align with our vision, because as Tomorrow.Africa is delivering that education, we can incentivize. We're also looking at another challenge where boots on the ground, right? There are people who are still illiterate, a significant amount of them. So we're going to be working with NGOs that support these causes where that requires artisans, that they're supporting artisans. We want to partner with those organizations where they can be that that intermediary for us, where you're supporting these artisans, bring them on board, help them on board their product on Sellitic, and they can have direct gratification for the products that they're listing while you're helping them do the onboarding. So we're going to be partnering with NGOs. We're going to be partnering with organizations that support to help us bridge that gap, right? We're going to be working with individuals who also want to come into what I call a micro worker program. So individuals like teachers who have a good command of English, both verbal and written, because we want people to support these artisans who are illiterate, help them put a proper description of their product on our website, or on our marketplace, sorry. And we will incentivize these micro workers as well. And that is the power of what Afoma will give through that incentivization of giving them OMA tokens for the contribution that they make. So as long as we have people contributing to that ecosystem to help us break or bridge these gaps or challenges we're going to encounter across Africa, we want to incentivize you, because you are making the ecosystem to become sustainable. And that's how we're looking at tackling these challenges.
And I'm sure that in order to work consistently on all the different projects that you're working on, one should be driven by a strong vision. So Eric, what is your vision of the future of the African continent? How do you think things could look like in the future if emerging technologies such as blockchain are used and leveraged properly?
Honestly, I believe the future is very bright for Africa. So if you look at Africa today, a significant portion of the youth it's huge across Africa, between the ages of, I would say, maybe 20 to 40. I would think maybe about 70%. I'm hoping my statistics is right, but even if I'm wrong, but I know we have a huge percentage of youth across Africa. Now, these demographic, they want to learn, they want to adopt, they want platforms like ours that can give them the ability to succeed. If organizations like ours adopt emerging technology in a responsible way, right, and give these individuals or these youths the ability to tap in, the future is bright. 100%. Because I have said this in another podcast, Africans are hardworking people. We are hardworking people, and we're not looking for charity. Charity can just get us somewhere, right? But we want these people want platforms to enable their businesses, to allow them to scale, to allow them to compete. And if we can offer them this technology, that's all they need. So if imagine an artisan today that has the skill to do things with his or her hands, but she just doesn't have the ability to compete or have accessibility to the global market, that becomes a problem. So what we're simply saying is, take your skill. That's all you need. Take your skill and bring that to our platform, and we will give you the accessibility that you need, and we will incentivize you in doing so as well. So bringing in the right technology, bringing in the emerging technologies, and using it responsibly well. And what I keep saying, because we tend to see a lot of DeFi related projects, decentralized finance projects around blockchain. There are lots of them. Lots of them. We're talking about thousands. So what is the purpose here? What is the goal behind all these thousands of DeFi projects? Right? Don't get me wrong. They come in, they help. There's something around. They drive the whole inclusion aspect of it, and maybe payment gateways. But how many payment gateways can we have? Right? How many can we have? We need to also start looking at these emerging technologies to solve real world issues. Right? So as long as we are using this technology responsibly well, and we're applying them towards real world towards solving real world issues, the future is very bright for Africa, because we have youth today who are who are asking for this. And let's be honest, the formal economy is not sustainable for the youth across Africa today. We have to find ways to generate or enhance the informal economy to actually help bridge that gap. So I would honestly tell you, the future is bright if organizations like ours, are doing the right things responsibly well.
And Eric, what advice would you give to our listeners that are aspiring to become entrepreneurs, whether in social entrepreneurship or any other sector? Maybe for someone who's still a student or working in a 9-to-5 job, who'd like to find meaning in an impactful project. What advice would you give to this person?
I would say do your research right, do your homework right. If you're trying to get into a specific space, do a lot of research. do a lot of research. I think before I started Afoma, I had to do my research. I had to read books. I had to find out how digital entrepreneurship works across Africa. I had to know what were the challenges when it comes to digital entrepreneurship across Africa, and choose your niche. You can't solve everything. Choose where you feel you can contribute, right? Um, Build the right team. Building the right team goes a long way. A team that believes in your vision, that can drive your vision, that can enhance your vision, that is very important as well. And I also want to encourage youth across Africa to take the time to look at what's happening across the globe. Look at, educate yourself, not just in classrooms, right? Use the social media platforms that you have accessibility to, Twitter, Facebook, and not just for the social engagement, but also find ways to educate yourself. Go on Medium, learn. Those are the only things that can help you, give you ideas. Every day, myself, I'm a subscriber to Medium today, and I learn things every day. And I will be honest with you, there are things I learn, and I sit down with my team and I say, hey, why don't we try this? Because I picked up on this knowledge. Those are the things that can help you, give you ideas, that can help you, give you exposure, to what's happening out there, and can, give you the opportunity to, to do better, in execution. There are a lot of wonderful, entrepreneurs out there that are sharing their knowledge every day. I attend the right, go on Twitter, attend Twitter spaces. I always attend, Victor Osomata's, Twitter space that he started doing for entrepreneurs across Africa. I tend to do that on my weekends and just listening. There are amazing entrepreneurs, founders doing fantastic things. You need to get into those things and listen, because it's in listening you can get inspiration. You can find out ways. You can even hear their own challenges. Like for us, I pointed out we have challenges in our former, and it's when you listen to some of these challenges or how we can enable businesses, you can now say, I heard what Eric said here, and I can get into that space because I can help him address this issue. So that is the one way I would encourage, youth and young entrepreneurs. Take the time to, educate yourself, get into the right space. I'm not saying don't focus on social side of things, but also use these platforms to find ways to get into, opportunities where you can listen, look at new technology out there and find ways you can help bridge the gap. So that would be my advice to young entrepreneurs and, youth across Africa today.
That's awesome, Eric. How can people follow you, Eric, and learn more about your work, and also see how they could contribute to AFOMA and Azoneta?
Absolutely. We are on Afoma is across, most of the social media channels. So we are on Twitter, we are on Instagram, we are on LinkedIn, we are on Facebook. You can follow us at, Afoma Global. So if you just come on Twitter, Afoma Global, you right there. You can use the same handle, across, Instagram and all the other, platforms as well. You can also join our community on Telegram, and I would encourage you to please join us on our Telegram group, because that's how you stay, abreast of what we're doing from an Afoma standpoint. So yes, you can find us, join our community group on Telegram, search for, Afoma Global, across, Twitter and Instagram. On LinkedIn, you can search for Afoma itself, and you will find us there. Azoneta, you can find us Azoneta Corp, AZONETA on Twitter. We also on LinkedIn as well. We are also on Facebook. So if you search for us as Azoneta Corp, you can find us there. Feel free to reach out to me as well directly. I'm also on Twitter. Just Osuorah at Twitter. I am on LinkedIn. So if you search for my first name, last name, Eric Osuorah, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. I am also on Instagram, but I am very active on LinkedIn, I have to say, and on Twitter. I am very active on both platforms. So you can definitely reach out to me on directly on both platforms, and we can definitely find ways to collaborate.
Awesome, Eric. Eric, it was great to have you on Tomorrow.Africa, and I would be very glad to have you back.
Absolutely. Hopefully, once we launch our token and things are picking up with our first product, which is Sellitic, I will gladly want to share some feedback on that, and hopefully use your platform to bring in artisans across Africa and the rest of the world. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Feel free to visit our website, Tomorrow.Africa, and subscribe to our channels to be updated about the future episodes. We publish 2 episodes per month at the 1st and 15th of each month, so stay tuned for the next ones. And until then, stay curious, stay ambitious, and see you tomorrow.